it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel and my garage. We've been following the build of my '89 GTR. Now this video is especially exciting for me because after 21 months of being built in my garage, she finally comes back to life. Now yes, I know I've done a couple heat cycles just for fluids and the initial startup and whatnot, but she finally gets strapped down on the dyno and we get to see what she does. So we'll take a look at some of the footage from our dyno session down in Portland, Oregon. And then we will jump in the car, go for a drive, get some nice reviews so you guys could enjoy some of the sights and sounds of the car itself. But first, I kind of want to cover a couple things that were lessons learned from the dyno and things that might have changed from the past video. All right, so probably one of the biggest things that has changed is my fuel lines. Now, when I was doing the pre-dyno checks and just kind of going over the car in its entirety before we strapped it down just to make sure there's no leaks, everything was tight, whatnot, I noticed that there was a little bit of fuel weeping past one of the AN connectors that was under the car, where it transitioned from a hard line back to a braided line. So my setup initially was braided lines coming out of the tank. Once it got under the car, it went to a -8 hard line, and then back to -8 braided in the engine bay. So I ripped all that out, both the feed and the return, ordered new braided line, and just did solid sections, right? So now I have less points of failure, and well, there's no leak anymore. So yay, I don't want to mess around with leaking fuel. Another thing that we changed was my wastegate routing. So let's take a look at that. And now while it was on the dyno, it did work, but it just wasn't really efficient and really wasn't providing the control that we needed. So we kind of changed it back up to just the conventional method of having port 1 being tied in with both our lower as well as our boost source, and then port 2 going to the top part of the wastegate right there. Another little thing that I noticed afterwards was I was getting a little bit of a little bit of oil that was weeping past the threads on my oil feed on the restrictor right there. So I applied some Permatex Loctite thread locker, good to 400 degrees, prevents against vibration and all that other good stuff. So it's been sitting for about a week. I think it has like a 96-hour cure time, but I put it on a week ago, so we'll see if it still weeps a little bit of oil after today's drive. And that's about it. I mean, for the most part, the dyno session went relatively smooth, right? We had those couple hiccups where we kind of had to stop and adjust something. I had to redo the lines for the wastegate really quick. But preparedness is key, right? If you're gonna go to a dyno, make sure you bring your tools, bring any specialty connectors. Who knows, maybe you need vacuum fittings. Just, if you weren't a Boy Scout, the Boy Scout motto is always be prepared, right? So just be prepared for whatever you're gonna run into. And luckily I had everything on hand. So the downtime on the dyno was minimal, and we're able to get back out there and start making more power.
feels so good to be back behind the wheel of this car. I'll tell you what, after what, 21 months of sitting in various stages of piles of parts and assembly, to now be actually behind the wheel again, out for a weekend drive, is just, it's an incredible feeling. I really can't describe it. And as far as drivability, I mean, it's just like it was before I took it apart, honestly. I mean, low speed drivability, off throttle boost, or off boost throttle response, nice and smooth, plenty of torque. I mean, granted, everything around here is 25, 35, but you give yourself, you know, just a little bit of throttle and it jumps up really, really easily. Not to mention that when it finally comes alive, it is just a completely different animal. But we'll get out to the back roads here, so I could open it up a little bit. But I mean, just cruising around. I mean, you can't see it, but there's a lake off to the left-hand side. But just cruising around the lake, cruising around the back roads, going into town if I want to, you know, run some errands with it, or, you know, just go grab a bite to eat. I mean, the thing drives like it's stock. Honestly, you would not guess that there's a single turbo and over 500 horsepower in this chassis right now. I mean, it literally just drives like it's stock. So it is a new clutch, so I'm not going to beat on it too much. We do have launch control set up on this. Depending on where we're at, I may hit launch control, but I'm definitely not going to do a launch just yet, especially on the fresh clutch. Would definitely want to get some mileage on that. Don't want to take a chance of fucking that up. But I mean, like I said, drivability. I mean, the clutch is it's a spec twin disc P trim. Rated at like 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, but honestly, it feels like an OEM clutch. It feels like a stage 1 Exidy. I mean, it is so light and easy to drive. You honestly would not even know that it was a twin disc. Just cruising along, second gear, 3,000 RPM. We're going about 32, 33 miles an hour or so. And I mean, you just give it a little bit of gas. She goes. Now that's not even going all the way to red line. I mean, I wasn't really even paying attention to the gauges, but, you know, just kind of letting her breathe without really beating on her too hard just yet. But man, this car is just insanely fun. never really driven a big turbo RB, so I don't know what 7, 8, 900, 1,000 plus feels like. But this was, what, 350-ish stock, and we were at like, what, 14, 15 pounds of boost on the stock turbines. But to go from that to 525 or 524, 425 torque, and have this thing wake up like it does, dude, it's a completely different car. Completely different. Just a single ball bearing. It's not even the dual ball bearing, so a little bit older technology. It is used. I did buy it off of my buddy who had it on his Skyline previously and was running about 500 plus horsepower, so probably about the same ballpark. I mean, who knows, in the future it might switch out for a 3884. We'll see, but so far I love it. I mean, great drivability, great response. She gets on it, she has tons of fun, and then she could calm down and just cruise. So I can't complain at all. Really can't complain. Just the sound of the car alone is just such a visceral experience. Listening to all that air moving with the turbo. I mean, the RB exhaust note is one of the best notes known to man, so can't complain about that either. I mean, you could just cruise for hours, not listen to a single thing on the radio, just listen to the car do its thing, man. Old Town Fairhaven, head down to downtown Bellingham and see if I can find a couple spots, snap a couple pics, and then we'll call it a day and head home. Well, I think we're gonna go ahead and call this the end of the video. I've been out driving for several hours and the batteries in the GoPros are starting to get pretty dead, so quick review. I mean, the car runs awesome. Again, huge thanks to Jason, tuned by PSI, linkecu.com, for working his magic on that G4 ECU. Huge thanks to Ray at Garage Auto Hero for doing such a great job building that block. I mean, the car runs like it's stock. I mean, low speed drivability is perfect. And then, you know, you really start to get on it and get into boost and she really comes alive. So, I mean, it's still a fresh build. So I'm gonna get some more miles on it and then really start having fun with it. But if you guys have been following along since the beginning of this build, I really appreciate that. It's been one hell of a journey over the past 2 years or so. But as you can see, she's running and driving and I couldn't be any happier. So I'm gonna finish this awesome bento box. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.